In a British prisoner of war camp there was a special German soldier. No one could get a ball past him into the goal he defended. And this scene happened to be witnessed by a coach.
Not bad at all.
But his daughter looked down on it with disdain. She put out her cigarette, carrying the arrogance of a victorious nation and contempt for the aggressors, and decided to take him on herself. Facing this beautiful British girl, the goalkeeper seemed to go easy on her, letting the ball roll into the empty net behind him. But this act was immediately and harshly stopped by the British instructor at the POW camp. The instructor's angry roar was a true reflection of that era. He would not allow these Nazis, whose hands were stained with blood, to have any contact whatsoever with any British civilian. However, a turn of fate soon arrived. Because the coach's team had a terrible goalkeeper, their results were consistently at the bottom of the standings. This caused the team's investors to gradually lose faith in them.
If we go down, Jack, I don't think I can keep backing you.
Hearing this, the coach's heart sank, but to temporarily appease the investors, he vowed with certainty that he would improve the team's performance in a short amount of time. For this, he had no choice but to carry a whole box of expensive, top-quality cigars and once again step through the gates of the POW camp. He needed to rent that German soldier for a day to save his dangerously struggling team. Even though he was the one asking for a favor, on the way back, Jack still deliberately kept his distance from the other man. His eyes were full of disgust and contempt, and in Bert's eyes, there also was barely concealed hostility. After arriving at their destination, Jack tossed Bert a piece of gauze and told him to wrap it around his throat, pretending to be an injured man who couldn't speak. But Bert refused. This instantly left Jack speechless. In the POW camp, every German soldier's situation was extremely humble. Not only did they have to do the dirtiest and hardest work every day, but even their sleep was constantly interrupted. And now, having finally gotten a chance to change his fate, he didn't even appreciate it.
Do you like being on the latrine detail? Is that what you want? Or do you rather play football?
Faced with the threat of returning to endless hard labor, Bert finally gave in and obediently wrapped the gauze around his neck. But in the locker room, when Bert instinctively spoke, his German accent was like a bomb, instantly setting off an uproar in the room.
It's fucking German! You're not, are you?
Yes, I am.
Bert didn't hide his German identity at all and openly removed the gauze from his neck. The players' protests nearly blew the roof off, but Jack couldn't worry about that now. His team couldn't afford to lose this match. Just then, the referee urged them to take the field. Faced with the referee's pressure and the coach's earnest pleading, the players finally took the field, filled with hostility and disdain. The football field is the best place to prove oneself. Bert stood on a British soccer field for the first time. At first, he was a little nervous, but the moment the opponent wound up and blasted a shot, his instincts were fully awakened. A diving save drew excited applause from Jack, and that was just the beginning. He then became like an impenetrable wall, using incredible reflexes and anticipation to stop the opponent's shots time and time again. What was even more astonishing was that not only was his defense solid, but his powerful throwing was also a lethal weapon for counterattacks. The ball found his teammate upfield with precision. Then Bert did it again and again, assisting his teammates in scoring. By the end of the match, he had achieved a hat-trick of assists, leading his team to a 3-0 victory and miraculously keeping their hopes alive. The victory made Jack ecstatic. He decided to keep Bert for the rest of the season, but when he happily returned home, a family storm was waiting for him.
Drove Hitler home, did you?
Hey, you was the one who wanted to play football with him.
I wanted to show the arrogant tosser what's what.
The fierce opposition of his eldest daughter, Margaret, represented the entire family's attitude. In their view, being associated with a Nazi soldier would thrust the whole family into the center of the town's public opinion. But Jack was exceptionally determined. As long as it improved the team's performance, he didn't care about that.
Maybe you'd have raised yours if it had stopped the team getting relegated.
Despite his daughter's mockery, Jack remained unmoved. In fact, to make things easier for the games, he decided to have Bert work at his grocery store. This decision completely broke down his daughter's psychological defenses. She mimicked the tone and salute gestures of the German army, expressing the strongest protest to her father. But it still didn't change anything. A week later, Bert showed up at the store. This filled Margaret with resentment, but also a bit of curiosity. But when Bert took the initiative to greet her, she was too nervous to speak. When he started talking to her younger sister, Margaret noticed and immediately intervened, forcing her sister to leave. This unusual action also raised Bert's question. He stated that he meant no harm, but in the face of deep national hatred, Bert's defense seemed weak and pale. He could only silently pick up a worn-out soccer ball and begin his daily training. Gradually, he watered hope with sweat and silently melted the iceberg of prejudice with his actions. Bert personally made a pair of stilts for the younger sister and patiently taught her how to play. Margaret saw all of this. The walls in her heart were quietly breaking down. Meanwhile, Bert's on-field coordination with his teammates was getting better and better. Their excellent results drew applause from countless people. The coach's attitude towards him changed from contempt to recognition. Time cannot erase the scars of history, but certain passions can bridge the chasm of hatred. The turning point came one afternoon. Margaret's pet bird flew up onto a beam. Bert happened to be passing by and helped catch it. In that moment their eyes met. A strange feeling filled the air. When the filter of prejudice is wiped away by kind actions, the true nature of humanity is revealed. Led by Bert, the team advanced triumphantly. Avoiding relegation was in sight. But just at this critical moment, a group movie screening at the POW camp dragged Bert into an abyss of memory. The instructor showed a documentary about Nazi concentration camps. Those horrifying images reminded Bert of an unforgettably painful memory. In the occupied zone, a Nazi officer took a little boy's soccer ball, promising to return it after a game. The boy believed him him, mustered his courage, took the ball and turned to run. But he didn't know the officer had already silently pulled the trigger. Just as the gun aimed at the boy, Bert intervened in time and successfully saved him. But the danger wasn't over. The officer then aimed the gun at Bert. Staring into the dark barrel of the gun, immense fear instantly snapped Bert back to reality. After the film ended, a prisoner, unable to bear the immense guilt, committed suicide the next day. Bert angrily confronted the instructor, only to be told that the prisoner had been sentenced to death by his own conscience. During the struggle, a small wooden pendant that fell from Bert was picked up by the instructor. It was a traditional accessory from the people of the occupied territories. This made the instructor start to wonder. From then on, Bert became increasingly silent and withdrawn. Margaret noticed the change in him and took the initiative to talk with him. She confessed that she loved dancing most of all. It felt like flying, and she could forget all her worries. Bert's eyes lit up. He said soccer was also a kind of dance. So, in the next match, Bert did something romantic and bold. After receiving the ball, he didn't pass it immediately. Instead, he looked at Margaret in the stands, then began to dance lightly while holding the ball. The whole stadium was in an uproar. Only Margaret broke into a knowing smile. This was their secret, a resonance between soccer and dance, a love that transcended nationality and hatred. Later, Bert's outstanding performance was noticed by a talent scout, and just like that, he got a better opportunity. Soon after, Bert and Margaret held their wedding, and Bert officially joined Manchester City, ready to begin a new chapter in his life. But what awaited him was not flowers and applause, but a citywide storm of public opinion. At the press conference, all of Bert's past dirt was unearthed. The media believed that this invader should not be allowed to become a British player. Overnight, his name spread throughout every street and alley. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets, holding protest signs, boycotting this Nazi player. Manchester City Club also became notorious, bearing immense pressure. The team's locker room was lifeless, but the head coach firmly told the players that sports have nothing to do with politics. They were a team, and they had to unite and respond to the doubts with their performance. And so, Manchester City took the field to a chorus of boos. Facing the hostile crowd, Bert tried his best not to be affected, but unfortunately, they lost the first match. After the game, angry fans surrounded the team bus, and some even rushed up to physically assault Bert. That night, the club held an emergency meeting to discuss whether Bert should stay here or not. Just then, Jack and Margaret arrived at the meeting. Facing the angry crowd, Margaret stepped forward and argued that they couldn't place all the blame on him alone. Although he was guilty, those crimes were not committed on his orders. He was just an executor, and he had been repenting for the past. Margaret's heartfelt words, though not immediately extinguishing all the anger, her steadfastness gave Bert immense strength. From then on, Bert turned all the pressure and abuse into motivation on the pitch. He delivered one miraculous save after another. With his impeccable performance, he made the boos from the stands grow quieter and quieter, while the applause and cheers grew louder and louder. He slowly won back respect with his skill. The tide of public opinion gradually turned. The media began to praise his professionalism. Bert's career got on track, and his family welcomed a new life. Life seemed bright, but the most brutal test of fate was just beginning. In 1956, during the historic FA Cup final, Manchester City faced Birmingham City. Aiming for the club's first ever championship trophy, Bert was full of fighting spirit. The match was exceptionally intense. Manchester City scored first, but later, the opponent used a throw-in to send the ball deep into the box. Then, an opposing player pushed the ball into the far corner with force, leaving Bert helpless. The score was tied. Fortunately, Manchester City took the lead again in the second half. Bert made save after save, and also assisted teammates to extend the lead to 3-1. The championship trophy seemed within reach. All 60,000 fans in the stadium chanted his name. The commentator even called him the goalkeeper god. Without a doubt, he was the hero of the city. But then, with only 20 minutes left in the match, an accident happened. During a cross from Birmingham City, the opposing striker collided hard with Bert, who had rushed out. Bert suffered a severe head injury, collapsed on the spot, and was unconscious. The entire Wembley Stadium fell silent in an instant. Margaret and her family's hearts were in their throats watching on TV. Everyone thought he was finished. But just as the team doctor was preparing to carry him off the field, this man, seemingly made of steel, miraculously stood up. Holding his severely injured neck, he signaled that he could continue. Little did anyone know, the post-match diagnosis would shock the entire UK. His fifth cervical vertebra was fractured and embedded into his sixth vertebra. It's just one step away from death. For the remainder of the match, playing with a broken neck, he made diving save after diving save, blocking the opponent's seemingly surefire shots time and again. Every fall, every time he got back up, was like a declaration of war against death. With a mortal body, he built a defense that even a god couldn't breach. Finally, the final whistle blew. Manchester City won the championship. Bert was unanimously voted the best player of the match. The Queen of England personally presented him with the award, but on his way back to the locker room, he could no longer hold on and collapsed. Bert's heroic story spread throughout the UK. He had completely transformed from a Nazi war criminal into a national hero, but the cruelty of fate was far from over. During his recovery, the true ending of the Ukrainian boy who was shot kept haunting his mind. It turned out that he hadn't intervened to stop the officer back then. He had witnessed the little boy's death. When he approached the still warm body of the boy, he noticed the pendant around his neck and had kept it with him ever since. And now, as he recalled this nightmare again, the belated feeling of guilt grew day by day. He called his wife, wanting to confide in her, but on the other end of the line, his son was clamoring for ice cream. Margaret wanted to refuse her son, but Bert readily agreed to the boy's request. And this became the decision he regretted most in his life. After his son successfully bought the ice cream, the next second, The screech of brakes and his wife's heart-wrenching screams came through the receiver. A sudden car accident had taken the life of their only child. The grief of losing his son was the final straw, completely breaking this tough man. He believed it was God's punishment for his past sins. After being discharged from the hospital, Bert chose to retire. He spent his days silently repenting at his son's graveside. One day, the British instructor from the POW camp unexpectedly appeared before him. It turned out the instructor's wife and child had also died in a German bombing raid, and they were buried in the same cemetery. He had let go of his hatred and earnestly advised Bert to continue playing soccer. Play for those who had accepted him. Play for those who lost loved ones during the war. Play for his son. The instructor's words pierced Bert like a sharp knife. His long-suppressed emotions exploded instantly, as if he were confronting his own painful past. After the struggle ended, the instructor returned the long-forgotten wooden pendant to him. The boy's memento felt incredibly heavy at that moment. In that instant, Bert finally saw the light. He confessed to his wife the secret he had buried deep in his heart, the truth about the Ukrainian boy. To his surprise, his wife told him not to dwell on the regrets of the past or stumble over past misdeeds. A person cannot live forever in the shadow of the past. Sometimes, regret is a form of growth. His wife's tearful encouragement helped him see the light. With Margaret's support, Bert returned to the team. When he stepped onto the pitch again, he was greeted by the warmest applause and cheers from all the fans. He continued to write his legend. He played 545 matches for Manchester City in his career. He didn't officially retire until 1964, at the age of 41. At his farewell match, fans even took away the goalposts, because in their hearts, no one could ever replace Bert Trotman.